The cab smelled like coffee and diesel and stale peanut butter crackers, exactly the way it always did after a week on the road. But this time, it didn't bother me. If anything, it comforted me. I was less than 6 hours from home, the sun was low behind me, and I had that itch in my chest that only came when I was counting down the miles to my kid's birthday. 7 years old. First one where I wouldn't miss it. First one where I'd promised to show up early, cake in hand, with that blue RC truck he kept pointing out in every ad. I even wrapped in the cab 2 days ago, clumsy folds and all. I had the route all planned. Quick stop at the Flying J for a shower, maybe shave the beard down to something respectable, then cruise into town before dark. Wife had been texting all day, checking my ETA, sending pictures of the decorations going up. Blue streamers, paper balloons, a half-frosted cake the kid was helping with, icing smeared across his cheeks. My phone buzzed with another one just as I hit the off-ramp. Him holding up 7 fingers, grinning like a jack-o'-lantern. That kind of thing hits different after a long haul. You think about all the birthdays you've missed, all the bedtime stories cut short by static over Bluetooth, all the little moments that passed while you were chasing paychecks down empty highways. I was smiling when my phone rang again. Not a text, a call. My boss's name lit up the screen, and right away I had that gut drop feeling. Something always goes sideways when you're this close to home. He didn't waste time. A short haul, he said. Just one more load. A favor. Small town near the hills, not far off route. Real quiet job. No rush on delivery. Just pick it up and drive. They needed someone tonight. No one else available. And there was a bonus. A generous one. That's how they always get you, isn't it? I should have said no. My wife wouldn't be mad. Not really. She knew what the job was. The kid wouldn't remember if I walked in at 9 instead of 7. But I thought about the rent creeping up. The crack in the truck's windshield I hadn't gotten around to fixing. The brakes that had been making that squeal. That extra money could ease a few things. So I said yes. Just one more favor. Pick it up. Drop it off. Then home. The pickup location wasn't in my GPS. That should have been a first flag, but I chalked it up to rural areas being spotty. I asked for the address again, typed it in 3 times. Nothing. Just a blank screen and a blinking cursor. My boss sent me a picture of an old paper map with the sharpest circle drawn in red. Use this, he typed. Like that made it okay. Like I was still driving in 1994. I had an old Rand McNally in the glove box. Every trucker keeps one, just in case. Most of the pages were wrinkled or torn at the edges, but sure enough, there was the same red circled road. No name, just a thin gray line weaving between mountains and forest. A few dotted landmarks, most too faded to read. I squinted at it, holding it against the dying light, and tried to shake off the feeling that had started to creep into my ribs. I took the exit marked for Cresswell logging access. No lights, no gas stations, just a cracked asphalt path leading deeper into the hills. The sun dipped below the tree-line as I drove, and the shadows turned sharp. My radio cut out 2 miles in. No static, no signal. Even the hum of passing cars vanished. I hadn't seen another vehicle since I left the interstate. It was like I crossed into some dead zone, a bubble where nothing moved but me. At first, I thought it was peaceful, serene even. Miles of untouched forest, the kind they paint on postcards. But it wore thin fast. The deeper I went, the stranger it felt. The trees leaned inward more than they should, like they were listening. The sky turned a darker blue than seemed natural. The headlights didn't reach as far as they should have. I checked the map twice, then a third time, each time tracing my finger across the same thread-thin road. Then I saw the sign, old and rusted, half covered in ivy. I had to slow to a crawl just to read it. Old bridge route. Use only in emergency. No explanation. No detour offered. Just a warning that didn't tell me anything. I stopped there for a long minute. Engine idling. My fingers drumming the steering wheel. Something about the word emergency sat wrong with me. Like it wasn't a warning so much as a challenge. The kind of thing you read in a dream and don't question until you wake up. But I was already late, and I had a job to finish. So I drove on. The road narrowed quickly. More gravel than pavement now. Trees pressed in from both sides, their branches clawing at the mirrors. There were no street signs, No mile markers, just that same eerie silence and the steady thrum of the tires on loose stone. I checked the clock. Only 20 minutes had passed, but it felt like more. The sky outside had gone a kind of black that made it impossible to tell where the land ended and the air began. And still, no other cars. Just me and the road and whatever waited at the end of it. I kept driving. God help me, I kept driving. The light had all but vanished when I saw her. She stood perfectly still, just off the shoulder, half shrouded in pine shadows and mist curling up from the ditch. Her dress was pale, almost glowing in the dark, like moonlight caught in fabric. It hung limp around her small frame, reaching all the way down to her ankles. Bare feet, not a speck of dirt on them, though the road was soaked and the shoulder nothing but damp mud. She didn't wave, didn't signal, didn't move, just stood there like she'd always been there, like she belonged to the road more than I did. My foot eased off the gas before I even thought about it. Something in me reacted before the rest could catch up, like a reflex older than memory. The kind that makes you slow down for deer or stop when a child runs out into the street. I didn't question it. Not then. The truck rolled to a stop beside her. Engine low, headlights casting a long, broken shadow across the trees. She didn't flinch at the noise or the glare. Her face turned toward me slowly, without urgency or fear. I rolled the window down, but the cold air rushed in like a warning. She remained silent, eyes blank and wide, looking not at me, but through me. It was automatic. Habit, maybe, or just the kind of man I've been raised to be. You don't leave people stranded on empty back roads at night, especially not barefoot girls who looked barely old enough to vote. She didn't speak, just gave a single, precise nod, more puppet than person, and climbed into the cab. I glanced back toward the shoulder, trying to process what had just happened. No box, no sign of a broken-down vehicle, no footprints. I waited for her to explain. She didn't. She just stared straight ahead, hands folded neatly in her lap. As I pulled back onto the road, I noticed a humming. A low, tuneless thing. Not quite music. Not quite human either. It vibrated beneath the hum of the tires, undercut the engine's familiar rhythm. Her lips never moved. The sound seemed to leak out of her, like radio static rising from under her skin. I cleared my throat, tried a little small talk. Told her I wasn't headed far, but if she needed to get to town, I'd help however I could. She didn't react. No nod this time. No glance in my direction. Just the humming. Something about the way she sat made the cab feel smaller. Compressed. Airless. The smell of pine and exhaust faded, replaced with something sweet and metallic, like rainwater in an old tin can. I cracked the window, but it didn't help. The air had grown thick, like the forest had decided to press in closer around us. The CB radio behind the seats suddenly hissed. Not the usual pop or occasional interference, but a sharp, sudden blast of sound, like it had been waiting to speak. I flinched as it crackled, filled with garbled static and a voice, no, not a voice. More like a dozen voices, layered and out of sync, all whispering at once. Words I couldn't understand, couldn't quite hear, but they wormed into my head anyway, like echoes bouncing off the inside of my skull. I reached back and slapped it off. Dead silence followed, but the hum from the girl only grew louder, taking up the space the whispers had left behind. My hands tightened on the wheel, eyes flicked to the mirror, and that's when I noticed it. The passenger seat was empty. Not like she'd ducked down or shifted out of view. There was nothing there. No shape, no movement, just an undisturbed, worn leather seat. As if I'd imagined her entirely. My stomach dropped colder than the air. I turned my head to look at her directly, and she was still there, sitting, humming, smiling now. That smile didn't touch her eyes. It didn't look happy. It looked knowing. Ich pulled over. The road was darker now, somehow even quieter than before. The forest around us was utterly still. No rustling of branches. No wind. Just the faint creak of the cab settling and my own pulse hammering against my ribs. I turned to look again. Still there. Still smiling. But something had changed. Her eyes were wider. Too wide. Irises too pale, like washed-out photographs. Her hair hung limp and bone-dry, though the air was damp with night mist. The humming had stopped. The silence she left in its place was somehow worse. I stared at her, waiting for some kind of explanation. Something human. A question. A laugh. A reason. But she just tilted her head slightly, as if I were the one out of place. As if I were the strange thing here. The inside of the truck had grown cold. Not the normal chill of night. This was deep, layered cold, like the kind that seeps up through the floorboards of an abandoned house. My fingers ached against the steering wheel. Condensation bloomed on the inside of the windshield, though I hadn't breathed heavy. I reached for the dome light and flicked it on. No effect, just a soft click and then nothing. The light bulb above us remained dark. I flicked it off again, suddenly unsure if I wanted to see her in a brighter glow. The cab was safer in shadow. She hadn't moved, still as stone, still smiling. I eased the truck back onto the road, not sure why. There was no logic left in me, only momentum. The kind that keeps you moving forward even when every part of you screams to stop. The road ahead stretched black and narrow, and the headlights barely pushed it back. Every so often, I glanced toward the mirror. It still showed nothing. Every so often, I glanced toward her. She was always there, just not in the reflection. It was somewhere between the 3rd and 4th mile marker, though mile markers had long since stopped showing up when I made the decision to turn around. The air inside the cab had grown unbearably heavy, each breath taking more effort than the last. My arms trembled with the kind of cold that seeped into the bones, and my thoughts had started to double back on themselves. A looping anxiety, circling like buzzards. Every sound outside the truck, every shadow in the trees, seemed to twitch at the edges of my vision. And still she sat there, unmoving, silent, smiling, until she wasn't. When the humming returned, it was subtler than before. Softer, as if it wasn't meant for me anymore. As if she was singing to someone or something else. That was when I made the first attempt to get off that cursed road. I slowed to a crawl, scanned the tree line for any sign of a turnout, a side path, a break in the endless green. Eventually, a narrow gravel lane peeled away to the right. Barely more than 2 tire ruts in the brush. No sign, no lights, just a path leading somewhere, and that was enough. I turned. The truck fought me on it. The wheels resisted the shift like they were glued to the asphalt. The engine groaned, sputtered, and then caught again. I pressed through, steering onto the gravel, watching as the pines closed in tighter on both sides. The lane wound around a steep incline, dipped through a shallow ravine, and curved west toward a hazy patch of open sky. For 5 minutes, I thought I'd done it, until the road spit me back out in front of the same rusted guardrail I'd passed 10 minutes before. Same bend in the road, same leaning birch tree, its bark torn by time or claws. Same old wooden post with a tattered, unreadable sign nailed halfway up. I hit the brakes, checked the GPS again. Still no signal. Still nothing but a blank map and the faint symbol of my truck pulsing in the middle of nowhere. My watch read 8:41. I tried another route, one that dipped to the left this time, wider and more promising. I took it fast, ignoring the whip of branches against the mirrors. Drove until I hit a break in the trees, until I saw the same damn stretch of road again. Same curve, same birch tree, same post. Still 8:41. Another route, then another. Dirt roads, logging paths, anything that looked like it might lead away. Every turn led back to that place. Each time, the girl beside me grew quieter. Not that she'd been loud to begin with. The humming softened to almost nothing. But she shifted once in her seat, just enough for me to see the corner of her mouth curl into something darker than a smile. That's when she spoke, voice low and dusted with something old and rotted. The road knows you now. No emotion, no threat, just fact. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth had gone dry. My heart thudded loud enough to drown out everything else. I kept driving. Eventually, I found a break in the trees. A faded sign poked through the underbrush, half collapsed and barely legible, but enough to suggest a rest stop up ahead. I followed it, though every instinct begged me not to. The road narrowed further, until branches clawed at the windshield and pine needles carpeted the path. The rest stop appeared suddenly, like it had grown there overnight. A crumbling building with a sagging roof, and 2 vending machines still standing guard by the door. A few parking spaces cracked with frost and roots. A garbage bin turned over and forgotten. Everything smelled of mildew and dust. I parked the truck and stepped out, legs wobbling under me. The girl didn't follow. She just sat there, eyes fixed on the dashboard, like she was waiting for something to arrive. Inside, the rest stop was worse. Dust blanketed every surface. Cobwebs hung from the corners like veils. The air was so still, it felt like stepping into a sealed tomb. One of the vending machines still had snacks inside, bags bloated and rotted, logos faded beyond recognition. A sandwich in plastic sat on the counter, bread consumed by green mold, the plastic warped with age. And yet, there were signs someone had been here. A styrofoam cup with lipstick on the rim. A pair of old sunglasses beside the sink. A set of truck keys on the floor, half buried in grime. I turned to leave and stopped. There was a truck parked behind the building, half covered in moss and vines. Its windshield shattered and the cab caved in. Tires flat, rear doors rusted shut. But the logo on the side was unmistakable. My company. Same faded blue. Same lettering. Only older. So much older. It looked like it had been sitting there for decades. I approached it slowly, the world shrinking around me with every step. The driver's side door was hanging open. Inside, the seat was torn, the dash was coated in dust, and vines had crept in through the cracks in the floor. But what caught my eye was the notebook. A ratty, leather-bound journal on the passenger seat, swollen with moisture and time. I flipped it open with shaking hands. Pages stuck together, ink smeared in places, but some of it was still readable. The entries started like logs. Routes taken, stops made, gas mileage. Nothing unusual. But then the tone shifted. Notes grew frantic. Dates repeated themselves. Sentences scratched out, rewritten, over and over. She got in without opening the door. She hums when the road is darkest. Every turn takes me back. Time isn't moving. I can't remember my son's face anymore. I never stopped for her. I swear, I never stopped. The final entry was half-torn, ink blurred by what looked like blood or water. If you're reading this, don't let her in. Don't talk to her. Don't look at her. I backed out of the cab, heart clawing its way up my throat. When I turned back toward my truck, I saw her silhouette in the driver's seat. Still, watching, waiting. The road hadn't ended, but I was starting to understand it never really would. Not for me. Not for her. Not for anyone who'd ever driven this way. Sleep took me the way it does when you haven't had any in days, sudden, punishing, and without mercy. I don't remember lying back in a sleeper, only the moment I realized I couldn't move. The humming was there, but it came from under my skin now, not beside me. The girl was nowhere to be seen, and yet I felt her presence crowding every inch of the cab. I could hear her breath inside the air vents, in the whine of the engine, in the hollow spaces between heartbeats. In the dream, my son stood at the tree line. He was 7 at first, just as he should have been, wearing the blue jacket with the missing button and those red sneakers he never took off. He waved, then called my name. His voice was distant, muffled, like it was traveling through deep water or coming from the wrong side of glass. Before I could reach for the door handle, he changed. 8 years old now, then 9, then 12. His hair got longer. The gap in his teeth disappeared. His arms lengthened like they were being pulled. He kept waving, kept calling, but the words decayed with every version of him. The pitch shifted, slowed, stretched thin. 16, 18. He stopped waving then. His eyes darkened in the dream. He looked straight at me, and I saw something hollow there, something missing, like whatever part of him remembered me had been scraped away. Then he turned and walked back into the woods, swallowed whole by the trees. I woke up gasping. The cab reeked of sweat and something else, something sharp, chemical, like rotting film. My skin felt sticky, as if I'd slept in syrup. The girl sat in the passenger seat again, unmoved, her head tilted toward the windshield. The sun hadn't risen. It never did now. I reached for my phone with shaking fingers. The battery, somehow, still sat at 64%. That made no sense. I hadn't charged it in days. I unlocked the screen and dialed home, desperate to hear a real voice. My wife's, my son's, even just the answer machine. The call connected on the first ring, but the voice that answered wasn't hers. It was mine. Not exactly, more like a warped recording of me. My own voice played back through cracked tape. Slowed, flattened, hollow in all the wrong ways. It didn't say hello. It whispered things. Secret things. Old things. It told me about the night my son was born. How I'd waited outside the delivery room, sick with fear and doubt. How I nearly walked out. Bags packed. Engine idling. The weight of too many miles already behind me. I hadn't told anyone that. Not even her. Not ever. The voice kept going, dragging truths into the open like worms from under a stone. Childhood things. Bragrets y eburia. Flashes of faces I never wanted to see again. I tried to hang up, but the phone wouldn't respond. The screen flickered, glitched, then died in my hand. I threw it across the cab. It hit the dash and slid under the seat. While I reached down to retrieve it, my fingers brushed against something stiff. Old paper. I pulled it free and froze. A Polaroid. Grainy. Yellowed, but unmistakably me. Sitting in a folding chair at a child's birthday party. A small cake sat on a table beside me. Candles half melted into the frosting. The trees in the background looked familiar, dark, towering pines. Forest that felt too close. Too quiet. And on my lap, smiling up at me with that same cold, unblinking stare, sat the girl. Same dress. Same expression. Hands folded in her lap like she'd been posed there. I was smiling in the photo. Wide. Genuinely happy. As if I belonged there. I flipped it over. The back was blank. Another photo slid out as I rummaged blindly, adrenaline twisting my guts. This one was closer. No background. Just a girl, arms around my neck, her cheek pressed against mine. I looked older in this one. Beard flecked with gray. Skin pale. Eyes wrong. Too glazed, too distant. Like I'd been smiling for a very long time. Dozens more photos followed. Some black and white. Others in faded color. Different angles. Different settings. The same theme. Me. And her. Always her. One at a picnic. Another inside the cab. One where I'm kneeling beside her, holding a cake shaped like a truck. In each one, she looks identical, timeless, untouched by age or weather. Her dress never changing. Her hands always folded the same way, always in her lap. My hands began to shake. I tried to throw the pictures back under the seat, but they clung to my fingers like static. No matter how many I dropped, more appeared. One slipped into the cup holder. Another peeked out from the glove box. I tried the radio again. Dead. I tried the dome light. Dead. The engine rumbled softly beneath my feet, but the gauges didn't move. Speedometer stuck at 0. Fuel needle floating in place. Time on the dashboard still read 8:41. It always read 8:41. I looked at the girl. She stared forward, hands still folded. But her mouth twitched, just a little. Not a smile this time. Not quite. More like a smirk, forming in the corner of her lips. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold. The forest was waiting. It always was. The wind didn't blow. The air didn't move. It was as if the world had paused around me, and only I kept ticking forward. Or maybe it was the other way around. I called out, not knowing what I expected. Maybe I hoped my son would answer. Maybe I hoped I'd wake up. Maybe I was praying that the road would change its mind and let me go. But the only sound that came back was a faint humming. Not from her. Not from the truck, but from the woods. Low and melodic, the same pattern as hers, but dozens of voices now. Layered, chiming in unison. I backed into the cab and slammed the door. The Polaroids had scattered across the seat. Every single one of them had my smile frozen in place. And not a single one showed my son. Not anymore. The thought came slowly, the way old memories do, coated in dust, rising like breath on a cold mirror. I never checked the load. Not once. Not when I hooked the trailer. Not at the yard. Not after the detour. I'd signed the paperwork, same as always, but there had been no manifest. No clipboard, no barcode sticker, no weight listed. Just a time, a place, a signature that wasn't mine. The realization bloomed like rot in my stomach. All that time, I'd been carrying something I hadn't seen, something I hadn't asked about, something that I'd already known I wouldn't make it home. I pulled over, not because I intended to, not because there was a choice. The road curved where it hadn't before, opened up to a clearing I didn't remember entering, and I coasted to a stop as if compelled. The forest fell quiet again, darker than night. The girl was still in the passenger seat, but her eyes had closed, lips curved into something between peace and expectation. I climbed out of the cab on legs that no longer felt like mine. The trailer door groaned on its hinges. Metal shuddered. Rust wept from the locks. It should have been empty, or stacked with pallets, or at the very least, a cold box of some kind. Something logical. Something I could process. Instead, I found a room. A perfect recreation of a child's bedroom, pressed into the dark shell of a freight trailer. The walls were lined with faded wallpaper, bears and moons in soft pastel colors. The floor was carpeted in something shaggy and blue. A wooden toy chest sat under a curtained window that led to nowhere. There was a bookshelf, a cracked lava lamp still casting flickering red across the shelves. A pile of books stacked at odd angles. On the far side sat a small bed, neatly made, a single pillow, the blanket tucked just so. On the nightstand, a birthday cake rested beneath a brittle glass dome. The frosting had collapsed into a dull crust. Candles melted flat, barely recognizable as wax anymore. Dust floated through the air like ash. The air tasted sweet. And standing in the corner, hands clasped, white dress untouched by time or decay, was the girl. She waited like she'd been waiting for years, or for seconds, or for every moment I'd ever forgotten to come home. Her lips moved, but I didn't hear the words. Not with my ears. They were spoken somewhere deeper, etched into the part of me I thought I'd buried in miles of blacktop and broken promises. She told me about the others, the ones who made the same mistake, the ones who took the load they weren't meant to question, the ones who promised to be home before dark, the ones who drove until the road curled inward and the clock stopped ticking and memory became fog. She said they never made it. None of them. The cake was always ready, the room always waiting, and the road always watching. My legs gave out. I collapsed on the trailer floor, the carpet soaking through my jeans like it was wet with something more than time. Her humming began again. Softer now, slower, like a lullaby for the damned. I don't remember blacking out, but I do remember waking up. Sort of. The notebook is old. The pages are thin and flake at the corners, curling like autumn leaves. The spine cracked open like it had been waterlogged and dried again under the wrong sun. I found it in my lap. Or maybe I wrote it. It's hard to say now. The words on the first page are familiar. The handwriting mine. The tone tired. If someone finds this, I'm sorry. It was supposed to be just one more haul. I was supposed to be home for his birthday. My fingers are stiff. They move slower than I remember. There's dirt under my nails. Or maybe it's mold. My boots are gone. My jeans are damp. The pages blur in and out of focus like I'm reading through a fogged window. I think I'm sitting by the tree line now, not far from the road. The truck is still there, parked just beyond the clearing. The trailer door open, the scent of old frosting bleeding into the breeze. She isn't in the passenger seat anymore, but she's not gone. She's just waiting. Again, the road stretches ahead, black and slick and endless. Time here doesn't flow. It collects. It thickens. It waits for someone new. I hear an engine. It starts faint, a distant hum swallowed by the trees, then rises slowly until the headlights cut through the mist and I see a truck rolling up the bend. Newer model, clean paint, CB antenna bobbing with every bump in the asphalt. The driver slows. Brakes hiss. I watch through the brush, half-hidden, notebook clutched to my chest like a relic. There, by the shoulder, she stands again. Barefoot, white dress, hands folded in her lap. She doesn't move. She never does. The driver leans out of his cab, and though I can't hear what he says, I know the tone. Concern, curiosity, the desire to be good, to help. He gestures. She climbs in, and the truck pulls away. Back onto the road that doesn't appear on any map. Back into the woods that never change. Back into the loop that swallows everything it touches. I don't remember how long I've been watching. I don't know how long I'll stay. The notebook is almost full. I write slower now. Colder. Lighter. They won't find me. They never do.